Hey folks, it's Sam, and I'm making this video today about Venus in all 12 signs. As you can see, I have this slide here all ready to go for you, where I'm going to be talking about qualities of Venus, need for beauty, desire for happiness. Then we're going to go through each of the signs. So whatever your sign is, you'll also see that there. I'm doing it as Venus is in its debilitated sign right now. It has been actually for a couple of weeks. And it's also joined K to the south node as we're getting close to the upcoming eclipse. So this is, what we're going to be talking about today. I do want to encourage you to please share and subscribe to the channel. Like the video as well. It does really help when people do that. And of course, leave a positive comment and like the video as it says here. Again, that really helps out a lot. So we're going to be talking about the Venus in all 12 signs today. And obviously, when you were born, Venus was somewhere. And first, we have to understand what this is, because the symbol is very deep, and it's a channel of consciousness, like all the planets are. They're not just, I shouldn't even say symbol. It's an active life force in you. Venus is the life force that connects you with that desire for beauty, happiness. As I say, as it says here, sharing values, which is a function of beauty and happiness and sharing, sexuality, sensuality. But this highest quality is really that, as it says here, need for beauty and to find beauty in life. Because we're surrounded by beauty. Venus gives us that appreciation of beauty. And we can experience it in many different ways. We can experience it through our body in the form of sensuality and sexuality, for example. In that sense, it's then very physical. And we can even mistake that for happiness. Like, the ice cream is making me happy. Well, it's not making you happy, it's giving you pleasure. Again, that's a different level. Through the body, we experience Venus as pleasure. Emotional state, through our mind and emotional state, we experience Venus as happiness and this desire for happiness. As an emotional state, it feels like happiness, particularly when we share something with others. It's different. For example, Mercury can also feel like happiness, but it's more like fun. The moon also can feel like happiness, but really the emotion of the moon, or the real feeling of the moon, is actually peace. Happiness is like, oh, this thing makes me happy. Most often, it's this person makes us happy, and we kind of get very much into other people and lose ourselves in the relationship with other people with Venus. Ultimately, we have to find that happiness doesn't come from a person, especially like a romantic experience, or really any person that we get involved with that makes us happy, quote, makes us happy. Happiness is our nature. And this person will be reflecting back your happiness or not. But ultimately, we need to find happiness in something internal, and that's expressed as this higher sense of beauty and transcendent devotion to beauty. We can see that in the form of like nature, for example, sublime forms of beauty. Like, for example, with your gurus and teachers, There's a joy and a bliss of the soul that comes when we gaze upon that beauty. It connects us to bliss, ananda. And Venus is very connected to that ananda bliss, that bliss of the soul. And so this is why her exaltation sign is Pisces and the debilitation sign is Virgo. Because Pisces is very connected to that ananda state, this otherworldly state. And actually, the state of ananda is most connected to Jupiter, which is that bliss of higher teachings. So this is why when you get Venus and Jupiter engaged in that way, where you have Venus in the sign of Jupiter, then the sensual quality of Venus, because Venus, again, it's very sensual. The reason food tastes good and sex feels good and all of that comes from Venus. Not from Jupiter, not from the moon, not from Mercury. Venus makes the senses pleasurable, makes agreements with other people enjoyable, where we enjoy when we can share that beauty with someone we think is beautiful. We find someone, we think they're beautiful, something about them. We want them to like us. We want to share beauty with them. It's Venus that enjoys that. But again, ultimately, it has to be elevated and it has to be more of a transcendent state, not just a limited state that we enjoy for ourselves. And by the way, just to say, I'm doing readings right now for the rest of 2024. You can see it says my 2024 Vedic Astrology under my name here. If you wanted to see how the rest of 2024 is going to affect you, well, the Mercury retrograde cycle has ended, but we still have Saturn retrograde till November 4th. We have Jupiter retrograde, Mars weak or debilitated into 2025. We also have upcoming eclipse in Virgo. Then you can check that out, and I'll also talk about that, and also talk about your sign as well in relation to these things. If you wanted to follow that link, my 2024 Vedic Astrology, I've already done so many of these readings. So, but this Venus equation, now that Venus is debilitated, it's with Ketu, again, as I'm recording this, has our vibration sort of low, feeling kind of low. And so wherever Venus was when you were born shows how you're aligned or oriented toward finding beauty in life. And keep this transcendent evolutionary process in mind, because it could be very sensual, but also personal and emotional with others, but then also spiritual in the cosmic realm. So if Venus was in Aries, you're bringing this beauty, like beautifying battles, because Aries is very much about the battle to win and get our victory. It's ruled by Mars, and it's about taking on challenges in life. Taking on those challenges in life are very important, and Venus is where we beautify those battles, where again we want to make them more harmonious, want to make them less contentious. And then then we have Venus in Taurus beautifying values. Now again, Venus is the ruler of Taurus, so when Venus is in Taurus beautifying those values is really pretty natural, because Venus is the planet that rules our values in that context. In that context, Venus is what brings the values, like I said, even in that first slide. It's the one that gives us value in life and allows us to appreciate the value of ourselves, but then also others. So when Venus is in Taurus, it's beautifying those values. So it's obviously very much in alignment in that sign. When it's in Gemini, beautifying ideas. And again, Gemini is very much about ideas, how things work. When Venus is in Gemini, it's bringing that beauty and that, again, joy, that desire for happiness. All of those things are there into the realm of ideas. And even just like when we had Aries, beautifying battles is because we have the desire for happiness. So then the desire for happiness goes into this place where there might be a battle, and Venus is trying to beautify that battle, make it more diplomatic. Again, beautifying values is obvious. Beautifying ideas, wanting to connect them with others, right? That's very much a Venus quality in Gemini when Venus is in Gemini. Beautifying emotions, Venus in Cancer, right? Cancer is the emotions. It's ruled by the moon. We want those beautiful emotions. I want that when I find beauty, it makes me emotional. Or when I'm feeling my emotions, I want them to be beautiful and kind. Again, you have to understand and not take these things as in an oversimplistic way, right? Because again, if we have Venus in Cancer, we want those beautiful emotions and feelings, but how often are emotions beautiful? And we want the beautiful emotion connected to our desire for happiness with another person, which is all about agreements and mutual respect and sharing. So again, Venus as ruling those agreements and that mutual respect that comes from sharing, when it gets in Cancer, it's very emotional about that. So when we don't feel respected, there's emotion too. So again, this is what Venus is negotiating. Venus in Leo, beautifying our identity, right? And again, you could see because Venus is trying to negotiate that. I feel good, you feel good. Negotiating those adult interactions where it's not just about my happiness, but it's also sharing that with you. In Leo, it's very much about, but I'm still the important one. Let's not forget. Let's not forget who the important one is here, which is kind of a Leo thing. And by the way, the same way with Cancer. Let's not forget whose emotions are most important. That's the Cancer, right? All of the signs have this, like with Gemini. Let's not forget whose ideas are right. I want to beautify ideas, but let's remember who's got the right ideas. Me, the Gemini, for example. So there's always the bias. Venus in Virgo, beautifying details. Now, again, even as we already noticed, Venus is in the debilitated sign in Virgo, right? It's in a debilitated sign in Virgo. But it's still trying to beautify details. But remember this to be true. It does beautify the details. It makes the details more beautiful, because Virgo is about organizing things, and Venus is like, okay, now let's organize them in the most beautiful way. But the Venus part of us that wants to find that happiness for no reason, which is typified by that Venus being exalted in Pisces. Exalted in Pisces is like that happiness for no reason idea. In Virgo, there's 1,000 reasons to not be happy. So this is why it's difficult, because it brings that transcendent desire, or that desire for transcendent beauty, into details where everything is, all the details are noticed, especially the ones that aren't making us happy. Venus in Libra, beautifying agreements, and you can see how this is conducive for Venus energy, because Libra is ruled by Venus, and in its most active state, Venus is creating agreements. So if Venus is in Libra, it's beautifying those agreements, being diplomatic, and understanding that harmony of desires, your desires with the other person, or at least trying to. Again, these aren't closed-ended statements, though, because there's other planets and whatnot. But in general, as with all these indications, Generally, Venus in Libra is beautifying our agreements. Venus in Scorpio says beautifying uncertainty. One of the biggest things with Scorpio is just this uncertainty. Everything is changing and I don't have any control. Again, it's not an easy place with Venus in Scorpio. It's trying to bring this beauty and this happiness into like sort of the uncertainty of Scorpio or the intensity of Scorpio. I could have put beautifying drama, beautifying, emotional battles or something like that. Again, I put uncertainty because really Scorpio, if nothing else, it has this quality of uncertainty where things feel in transition, beautifying transformation. And it's difficult, again, because Venus is it's sensual, it's literal with another person. It's where we're trying to engage first with the other person. And actual things like food and sensual experiences. And Scorpio is like emotional and sensing where we're vulnerable. It could be beautifying vulnerability. So what can tend to happen is it amplifies the emotional and the extreme qualities, which can lead to a lot of perhaps like sexuality, like confusing sexuality, not confusing like they don't like it or understand it, but it can lead them into things where their desires and their things like sexuality can be driven by a desire to not be uncertain or to not feel vulnerable. So it can, and again, it can make it unbalanced or make it out of balance. Whereas obviously, as we see, Libra is where it's in balance. Scorpio is unbalanced. It's maybe the most unbalanced sign in the whole zodiac in many ways. And then Sagittarius, beautifying beliefs. They're pretty simple but powerful interpretation. But again, beliefs are very abstract. And it shows the tension between Venus and Jupiter, the ruler, because Venus is, again, about very literal agreements. If we're having a relationship, we need to be having the relationship. And you need to be able to show up and do it. It's not just an abstraction. So this is one of the reasons also why when there's too much Jupiter influence on Venus, a person can be having a relationship with their fantasy, with their projection. And again, Jupiter is very much about projections. And Jupiter can be having, and Venus can be having, again, a relationship with the projection, with the fantasy, not with the reality. And then, of course, if you're having a relationship with the fantasy, then the reality is just going to disappoint you. And then you'll blame the reality because it didn't live up to the fantasy or this kind of thing. Now, again, all of this is trying to elevate Venus and spiritualize it into something that's less worldly, because Venus is first doing that. But just like everything else, we're trying to transcend the world. Capricorn, beautifying duties. Now, again, this is one of the better placements for Venus, those earth and air signs, because Venus rules the earth and air signs as well. But this one for sure, because Capricorn, it's ruled by Saturn. It's all the hard work of the world, all of the duty, responsibility, hard work. And a lot of it is the thankless work that no one thanks us for. We have to do all this stuff. Nobody is going to do it for us. And we want it to be easy. We don't want it. And if people resent the hard work that it takes to accomplish things, which is Saturn, then they're going to have a hard time. And by the way, that's a important aspect of life, is not resenting the hard work that it takes. And I've been doing other readings lately that are also about overcoming difficulty reading. I'm going to actually show this here because this is another one that is very powerful. The overcoming difficulty reading, I just assess Mars, Saturn, Rahu, and Ketu, and it popped into my mind here when I'm talking about Saturn in Capricorn. I'll also drop this link here. But again, this is very powerful reading because it talks about our capacity to overcome difficulty, and that capacity to overcome difficulty comes from Saturn. We all want the result that comes after we accomplish something, but sometimes we resent all that hard work that it takes to accomplish the goal. So Venus in Saturn-ruled signs makes those difficulties more tolerable. And it's beautifying the difficulty. Right? Kind of like the turn lemonade, make lemonade out of lemons or something, right? It's not necessarily lemons, but again, very, very important. Also, we have, again, this now Venus in Aquarius, beautifying service. Venus is, Aquarius is about service, not servitude, not being destroyed by the hard work that we need to do. And again, this is the other octave of Saturn, is that hard work that we have to do in order to accomplish something big, like in the world and public and things like that. So Saturn is that pressure of time that shows that we're going to succeed or fail relative to our willingness to be of service to that thing for the highest good. And by the way, again, these are the types of things that people always ask me about when they're like, okay, I want to do this for a living, but what about this? And so much of it is they're not really willing to do that hard work. And a lot of the hard work isn't external, it's internal. And that includes beautiful, and again, Venus, when it's in Aquarius or when it's in Capricorn, can really make that work worthwhile. But Saturn rules on two levels. First, we have to internally make a commitment. Then we need to externally make a commitment, and that's also hard. So Venus can help to beautify service in this way. And then Venus in Pisces is about beautifying loss. Interesting word for Pisces. Pisces is really where we are aware of loss. And loss can be quite painful to us. It can be quite painful because we don't want to lose, we want to win. We want to win everything. We don't want to lose. And surrender is loss, though. People hear, oh, surrender, and they hear me talk about surrender and even spirituality. Spirituality is just loss after loss after loss. Authentic spirituality feels like loss to your ego. Again, a lot of illusion around, well, I don't have a big ego. Yeah, you do. We all do. My ego is talking to you right now. The ego, this part is not the spirit. This is the ego, the separate identity. That is what gets lost when we do spiritual practice. Meditation is letting go of that and stepping into the fullness of consciousness, where the ego is lost. You let it go. So this is why Venus is exalted in Pisces, because it's where we beautify that loss, and it's even the loss of the beauty, of the worldly beauty, where we're letting go of our attachment to the worldly beauty and able to surrender that worldly beauty to the transcendent beauty. So that's how this also works. Now, again, just to let you know, again, before I end, I do have these couple readings. One is this rest of 2024 reading, which, a lot of people are getting this. It goes well into 2025. I also talk about the Jupiter transit into May of next year. The Mars transit goes through Gemini and Cancer, again, well into next year, into next June, right? And then also there's this overcoming difficulty assessment as well, where I talk about Mars, Saturn, Rahu, and Ketu in your chart, how they were when you were born. And again, that's also incredibly important. But either way, I hope you enjoyed this explanation of Venus in all 12 signs. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel.